I bought this book about chess strategy because it was co-authored by Sam Palatnik. Recently I came in possession of 3 volumes by Sam Palatnik called GPS for Chess Improvement or something similar, and I really like the style of this author. He is obviously part of the former Soviet school of chess, and so I wanted to see if he wrote other books, and this was one of them, with Lev Alburt, that is also a grandmaster from the Soviet school. They all moved here to US, and so it's kind of pleasant to see their writings and to learn about chess through them. I hope you will enjoy too. The book is divided in many chapters, that about 12 chapters with different topics. The chapter we are doing today is chapter 1, Good and Bad Bishops. I personally like to watch the games by Grandmaster Palatnik because I didn't know them, and I like his annotations, so I hope you will enjoy them too, okay? So this is game 3, Palatnik Dandridge in Chicago, played in Chicago, 1996. I like it because practically Palatnik played in a lot of open tournaments here in US, and is what you would find sometimes a grandmaster that plays against you, so that's what I find interesting. Palatnik start with d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, queen c2, e6. This move restricts the activity of the c8 bishop. Yes, this is called the triangle system, but if you notice, honestly, this is the same opening that you would play as white if you would play the Collie system, right? In the Collie system, one of the 2 bishops, generally the one in c1, gets totally blocked. g3, knight bd7, bishop g2, bishop d6, castle, and castle, and bishop f4. And here Palatnik writes, with this move, white challenges black for control of the e5 square, deciding that an exchange of a dark square bishop would be in his favor. If black retreats to bishop e7, he loses a tempo. His best chance was bishop takes f4, with some compensation for the exchange of his better bishop in the doubling of the pawns, right? In this case, Palatnik or Alburt write that this was the best chance for black. I honestly don't know, and let me tell you why. Because today, with the computers, we have discovered that the craziness is never ending. No? What they taught us about double pawns, and it's true. Here he has double pawns, and then this is isolated, which means if you remove all the pieces and this king could go here, this is a huge problem, right? So this is okay. But what I discovered with computers, because they are relentless, is that generally they will use this G file to attack. So that's what they do. It's terrible. And so, you know, the thing of the double pawns today is not really something important, especially if you play against computer. But okay, let's see what happens. Black played queen c7, and here it's marked as a dubious move. Obviously, he exchanges, and very interesting, he didn't play this. Guess what? He played this. Honestly, it would have been interesting to understand why he didn't play c5. No. So after knight bd2, black played h6, and also this is marked dubious. Why? Because it says this move doesn't address black's main problem, namely how to improve his bad bishop on c8. Better was b6. Okay, so as you can see, this is an interesting point of view, and now we don't know Mr. Dandridge what was his rating in the time, but as you can see, this can teach us a lot to think how a grandmaster, right? We need to think like a grandmaster. In this case, the grandmaster would say, which of my pieces is not active at all? And he would say, this is not active, okay, so I need to solve this. Instead, Dandridge didn't solve this and played this, maybe to avoid a knight g5, I don't know. Notice at this point, while for white the opening is over because the rooks are connected, for black the opening is still not over, he needs to finish his development. Okay, it continues with e4, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, d takes e4, and queen takes e4. And here there is a diagram, and it says the position is now clearly better for white, and he begins to think about how to win. His plan is to keep the black bishop in prison on c8, while being ready for c6, c5. This move would give white control over the d file, make the bishop on g2 more powerful, and lead to a white pawn majority on the queen side. Okay, interesting. So how did black continue? Black in fact helped white keeping this in there. Knight f6, queen e2, oh, bishop d7, finally moved it, but again, what is this now? I think there was this Brazilian grandmaster that called this a tall pawn, because as you can see, it's taller than the other pawns, but it's still a pawn because it's just protecting these two pawns. It's not a bishop at the moment, right? Rook a d1, rook a d8, and knight e5, placing the knight on the right square while opening more space for the g2 bishop. And this goes back. Bishop c8 is afraid to exchange it probably. Black has made some progress. He has at least connected his rooks. So you see that I was right. Connecting your rooks is a task of the opening. And is now ready to play c6 to c5. He wants to play this. Okay. But, so, if your opponent wants to play this, c5, and now it's white turn, what would you play? So try to pause and think, because this is important, right? You need to prevent your opponent from doing something. This is what prophylaxis is. So white played c5. Although this move relinquishes white control over d5 square, it is clearly best, since it is a life sentence for the prisoner on c8. Notice that this idea of a prisoner on c8 or life sentence is in reality very similar to Ninsovic. Ninsovic in his book My System and then My Praxis, he used this kind of colorful phrases, okay? So how did black continue? Queen c7. And now, again, it's your turn as white. Why I tell you this? Not because the next move is exceptional, is something you would never find. No. This is the essence of strategy. The author didn't stop to comment, but I do. Because at this point, if you are an average player, maybe you don't know what to do. What do I do? What do I do? So that's why you need, it's a kind of critical moment. Critical moments are very, very important, right? And it's not even critical because it's something that changes completely, but it's the idea behind that, what you need to do now, right? What do you need to do now? Well, if the idea is to trap this to death, no, what do? White played b4. Okay, as you can see, he starts to go forward with his pawns, and this, you know what is already happening here? That white is gaining a space advantage, which means black will start to have problems to maneuver his pieces. In fact, as you can see, black didn't solve this, and now it's, look, all his pieces are here, between the third and the fourth rank. There is nothing. It's terrible, right? Knight d5, queen b2 defending the pawn on b4, rook d e8, maybe he thinks to play this, rook f e1, queen d8, and guess again, what would you do if you were white? Again, it's just trying, this is again something that you need to think about. What would you play? White played a4. Why? Is a position improvement, but is doing a plan, right? Is expansion on the queen side to totally choke this. So that's very interesting, right? Now black tries to play a6. So this is really not coming out anymore. Knight c4, trying to use the new two outpost. Knight c7. And again, here I think the grandmaster tried to improve his position, because I would have played immediately knight d6, but he didn't. And maybe he should have put a little note on this. He played h4. So look, h4 maybe is trying to prevent that the queen comes out. No. Yeah. Queen f6. Rook e5. Rook d8. Rook d e1. Queen g6. And now again bishop e4. As you can see, is clearly blocking black from moving and obliging to take some decisions. In this case, black played f5, no? But of course, look, it seems black couldn't play queen g4. Here you can make your own analysis, but Palatnik says there is knight e3, queen h3, bishop g2, and the black queen is gone. So you cannot play that move. The only move you could play probably is this. But obviously once you make this, the problem is this is becoming a backward pawn, weak, because you need to protect him, one. And two, all the pawns, do you notice, are on the white squares, so this is really kind of dead, because in order to come out, what do? bishop d7, bishop e8, and then he finally got to h5. 3 moves. 3 moves. Okay? Okay, so obviously now white goes back, bishop g2, queen g4, knight d6. In another book about strategy, this is called the octopus. Why it's called the octopus? Because it controls 8 squares, right? So you can see, and of these 8 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are in enemy territory. Can you imagine 6 squares in enemy territory? So that's kind of amazing, right? Okay, so rook d7, probably hoping that he would swap. Here you also can see the difference of value in the pieces. While this knight is very strong, very well positioned, and giving trouble to black, because if you move in the wrong square, you're going to lose a piece, right? This one is maybe 1, right? So this is 3.5 maybe, and this is 1, because it's not doing nothing. It's blocked, totally blocked there, right? So this is why I like Palatnik games, because as you can see from his tournament games, he's able to show you an example of something very important that we should learn. Queen d2, g5. Obviously black tries, since here is totally blocked, black tries to have some counterplay on the king side, right? H take g5, h take g5, and here it says now white is ready to trade queens. And what does he do? He plays queen d1. Black obviously trade queens because he thinks, I'm getting less pressure, but trading queens is bringing black in an endgame that is highly bad for him. And so, I don't know, queen takes d1, rook takes d1, and now there is g4, another pawn on the light squares. To be sure, this will never get out. And look what he says, black's last pawn has taken its place along with all the others on the light squares. Now the bishop on c8 is nothing more than a tall pawn, like I told you guys, like I told you. Okay, king f1, king g7. So it seems at this point that white is already activating his king for the endgame. In this case, you probably need to visualize where you want your king to go. It's not something you can do by mere calculation, because it will be maybe 6-7 moves, no? But so maybe I didn't see the game, so I don't have any idea, but I can tell you this. Maybe he wants to do this, no? And go up to here, because then it becomes unstoppable. But let's see what happens in the game, okay? Okay, after king g7 there is king e2, king f6, rook h1 immediately occupying the file, king g6, king d3. I don't know here, but I think for logic that maybe he want to swap all the rooks, so that's why he played king d3, okay? Rook h7, rook takes h7, king takes h7, and now there is rook e1, like I said, yeah. probably now king g7 because he wants to swap the other thing, but I don't know how he's going to do with this, how he's going to save it. That's the question, right? Rook h1 and rook d8. King e3. Now he's going inside. Knight e8. You want to exchange this. That is a very strong knight. So again, as you can see, this is all the tactics training of the world will not teach you this, right? Would you really exchange this piece for this? I wouldn't, right? So what did he play? Knight c4. Here he put trading knights, could have helped black's defense. So, but it's not a question of black defense, it's a question to know the value of the thing, right? And this is very powerful, so I don't want to trade it. Bishop d7, king f4. The white king will use the dark squares to cut through the enemy camp like a hot knife through butter, like I told you, because then this becomes untenable. Rook c8, king e5, rook c7, knight b6, king g8, and now there is bishop f1 and black resign. So this is the final position. So why did black resign? Here the explanation. The white bishop will come to c4 with irresistible threats. For example, so let's see, bishop c4, right? But before, let's see what he plays. He plays knight g7, right? He says, yeah. Then there is king d6, knight e8, king e7, and the white king's invasion decide the struggle. That's kind of interesting, right? And here it says also the last part of the game 3, after black bishop was made permanently bad, reminds us of the game 1, Alatortsev 11 fish. As in that game, the king intrusion into the enemy camp via weak squares controlled neither by the enemy bishop nor his pawns proved decisive. So this was the end for this game. As you can see, because sometimes they tell you that the weak squares, in this case the black squares, were not weak because white didn't have a dark square bishop to actually exploit them, but in this case the king was able to exploit all those dark squares and enter the enemy camp. Enter the enemy camp means that at a certain point all the pieces, all the pawn go down because you cannot defend everything. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learn a lot on this strategy of keeping everything blocked on this side. And look how this bishop is not going anywhere. So I think we really needed to enjoy this game as a great example, and eventually we will be able to use it in our games because it could happen something similar, right? Thank you for watching. See you next time.